Hi, welcome back. This is episode 5, and today we are going to have a conversation about confidence and how to instill confidence in a child and have that carry on through the rest of your life. Although there certainly are ups and downs for confidence as well as anything else. But before we start, let me read you the actual definition of confidence. It is the feeling of belief or trust that a person or thing is reliable. Self-confidence is trust in oneself. Self-confidence involves a positive belief that one can generally accomplish what one wishes to do in the future. Self-confidence is not the same as self-esteem, which is the evaluation of one's worth. So, when was the first time you felt confident in yourself? Was it maybe when you were riding a bike and you could accomplish that after removing the training wheels? Maybe you were baking something. Maybe there are so many ways for you to feel confident in yourself. And I'm going to start with a short bit about myself. My parents certainly were not ones that would heap praise on anyone. That just wasn't their nature. However, I did bake cookies with my mother and cakes, and went on to do that on my own. So obviously my mother had confidence in me that I could accomplish that, or it would never have happened. She also taught me how to sew, which here we are in my sewing room. I know it's kind of messy right now, and you can see my dog over my shoulder. But as you can see, I'm still sewing today. I have a seamstress business, so definitely I have confidence in what I'm doing. It's also important, certainly in my life, I had an excellent math teacher. Miss Gould was her name, actually. And she would write equations and whatnot in algebra and geometry. That's what I had in grade 8. She was teaching me algebra and geometry, and she would put the formulas and the examples on the board, and she had a way of teaching that I caught on to right away. And maybe I mentioned in a previous episode that my style of learning is more of a hands-on, a visual. I'm more of a visual learner than, some people can read and then they learn that way. That's not me. I'm more of a visual person and a hands-on person. Anyway, she would have me up to the blackboard and I would be solving equations and showing the rest of the class how to do it. And that truly built my confidence in both algebra and geometry. And I did really, really well. My marks were in the 90s. And I knew when I walked into that classroom to take a test or an examination, I knew already in my head that I was going to do well because I had such a good understanding of it. And that carried through to when I began a trigonometry class. That was one of the subjects that we could elect to take. And because I had such a good understanding of algebra and geometry, I took trigonometry. And I can't for the life of me remember the man's name that taught, but he was really good also. And so those were classes that I really excelled in, only because the teacher that I had initially was so good at teaching that I just understood everything that I needed to in order to be successful in those classes. I think things are very different today with children growing up. Parents praise them for just showing up, not necessarily for their accomplishments. And this is my own personal opinion, that I don't believe that rewarding a child just for everyday things is beneficial to them, because that's not what real life is like. Now, if a child plays baseball, for example, everyone on the team will get some medal or banner or whatever just because they're on the team. Well, when you're working, you don't get praised, or you don't get a bonus just because you're on the team. So I think that's an important lesson for kids today, to maybe lower the expectation a little bit. Another thing I wanted to mention, certainly in my own case, I was always a very curious child, asking why. And that did me very well in life, being curious. Back when I worked for Bell Canada, of course it's so different today, but back then when we were working with punch cards and having to merge cards together in order to perform payroll, for example, or any other accounting thing, we had to wire panels. And we would have to get the technician in to wire the panels for us. So one day he was wiring panels, and I was looking over his shoulder and saying, well, what are you doing and why are you doing it? And he explained it to me. And it didn't take long that I was able to wire those panels myself. And that is an example of just being curious, asking, don't be afraid. Because that also increases your confidence in your abilities. And that's just one example. Later on, well, I was probably in my 30s and 40s and working in Ottawa. We had a desktop system that was being installed, and I was in charge for an entire department of installing that system. I knew nothing about that, absolutely nothing. And it was all on a mainframe. It wasn't an individual computer like an Apple or whatever kind of laptop that you own today. It wasn't like that at all. Everyone had a unit on their desk. And so I developed a system of just keeping track of who was where and what was what. And I did it with a simple Excel spreadsheet. I'm telling you, all the programmers were calling me saying, okay, well, where is this located? Where is that located? Again, an example of, well, why are you doing this? And what can I learn from it? And that certainly develops your confidence. In this episode of Reflections of an 80-year-old, I shared a couple of stories of my life about how small accomplishments as a child helped me believe in myself, and a couple in my younger adult days, and how building that confidence carried me through some challenges. Confidence isn't about being the best. It's about daring to try. I hope this episode encourages you to reflect upon your own journey and what small win built your confidence. What keeps you optimistic? Please drop your stories in the comments below. I'd love to know. Thank you for watching. Next episode, I'm going to talk about optimism and how optimism has kept me going through many of life's challenges.